Bill, why don't you give us a little of your background?
Well, I've been practicing law 35 years. I've pretty well done exclusively criminal law for the entire 35 years. I've got a wife, 2 boys, and 4 grandkids. I went to Texas Tech Law School, graduated in December of 1972, got licensed in May of 73. Never went to work for the DA's office. I've always worked for myself. And my secretary has been with me for 33 years, and my receptionist has been with me for 29 years.
Knowing you like I did, Bill, that's a remarkable achievement. And I would say, Linda, your lovely wife, should be sainted.
She just kissed too many frogs before she found me. Kind of funny, we had a wedding anniversary December the 3rd. And it was actually the 44th, and she thought it was the 40th.
What? Yeah, I guess time just passes fast when you're having a good time. What's one of your best anniversary presents or Christmas presents you ever given Linda?
I usually give her stuff like lawnmowers, vacuum cleaners, but I gave her a John Deere riding lawn tractor one year, and I think she enjoyed that.
She gets a lot of use out of that, doesn't she, Bill?
Well, that's a woman's job to do the yard.
Your yard's pretty big. How many acres is it?
1.06.
Well, she needs that riding lawnmower to get all that accomplished. What led you, Bill, to your decision to be a criminal defense lawyer?
You know, I was raised on a ranch and a farm, and we had absolutely no money. I probably didn't eat a meal that wasn't mortgaged before I got out of high school, and I can just remember being out on picking cotton or chopping cotton or riding one of those little 9-in Ford tractors without power steering in that sand. And I just would daydream about being a mob lawyer. And it really didn't, it wasn't anything I really planned after that. I was poor and had to work 40 hours a week. I would climb telephone poles for $70 a week and went to night school at West Texas State, now West Texas A&M. Linda was making, I think, $40 a week working for a dairy, and we had 1 kid. I think our rent was $60 a month, and it was hard to make the rent. And I never will forget, I could have bought a new GTO back then for $3,000, and there was no way we could afford that. And then the Vietnam War came around, and I got out of school. I graduated at Tech in economics in '69, and the law school, you know, was fairly new then. I wasn't smart enough to have good grades, and couldn't have gotten into any other law school in the state of Texas. And just because they were a young law school, I was able to get in. And it, kind of like Craig said, it might have been God looking after us. He knew what I needed to do, because it wasn't any of my doings really. It was just everything kind of fell in place. And when I graduated from law school, I think I had a 71 average, and I kind of felt bad about giving them that extra point.
So, how did you start off practicing law?
Well, I went to work for Pete, Mark, and Mitchell doing tax law in Midland, Odessa, and I never will forget, I did Averill Harriman's tax return. He was United Nations or something guy, and I messed it up so bad that when they discovered it, the bar results came back, and I was fixing to get fired. And so I quit before they could fire me, and came to Lubbock and hung up my shingle and started hustling the bars. Every night in the bar with a handful of cards. You know, you get divorces and DWIs, and just started hustling the business, and it took off pretty good.
You must have spent some time in some bandito bars.
Well, see, I knew the banditos before I even graduated from law school. Willie Sands was our neighbor, and he was good friends with Robbie Robinson and Earthquake, and they would have some great parties over there, and so I would go to the parties, and by the time I got out of law school, I had them sold up as clients.
So that was your mob, the banditos.
That was, I think, what I was thinking about on that tractor for all those hours.
So how many years did you represent the banditos?
Still do. There's problem with the banditos. There's not many new ones coming in, and they're all our age. And there's that old saying that age takes care of a lot of character defects, and they don't get in as much trouble as they used to.
So you had to branch out from the banditos.
Yeah, I was real fortunate, and this is, I'll talk about it in a minute, why I didn't think I needed TCDLA. I was representing Tramble, Lubbock Bail Bond starting out, and they at the time were the largest bonding company in, I guess, maybe the nation. I know in Texas they had offices in Harlingen, Dallas, El Paso, Albuquerque, and so really I didn't have any problems getting new business in when I first started, and I think that was the fortunate part about that is it forced me to try a hell of a lot of cases when I was a young attorney. I remember one year I tried 49 jury trials in 1 year.
You and Rusty O'Shea, as I recall, as a young prosecutor, had about 80 to 90% of the entire criminal docket. Byron Chapel, you and Rusty O'Shea.
Well, probably the three of us were pretty well, I mean, we were the criminal business back then.
What caused you to first get involved with TCDLA?
Well, you remember Cliff Brown was, he's past president, but at the time I think he was on the board. And he just bugged me and bugged me. Every time I saw Cliff, I'd try to go through another door where I wouldn't have to have him encourage me to get involved in Texas criminal defense lawyers, because like I say, I didn't think I needed them. I was making good money, had plenty of business, and it was just something I wasn't interested in at all. And then finally I agreed to go to a board meeting with him, and I got to meet some good lawyers for a change, and I was impressed, and it changed my legal career.
What did you learn from hanging around with all those good criminal lawyers in the state of Texas?
Well, I've never thought I was real smart, and people like Botsford and Jerry Morris and some of those people that are just a walking encyclopedia, it just makes you a better lawyer just to be around them, and gives you the incentive to just go that one step farther and try to be a better person and a better lawyer.
You were president of TCDLA in what year?
1995. The ironic part of that is I got sworn in 1995, and I don't remember the day, but my son got sworn in the same day as a DPS officer. We went from San Antonio over to Austin to see him get sworn in.
Is that
as
right?
a DPS officer the same day.
Now, when you become president of TCDLA, you've actually spent about the previous 10 years working your way up the officer chain as an officer doing various jobs. What are some of your most memorable events and things that occurred while you were working your way up to president of TCDLA?
I remember I put on a seminar in Las Vegas one time. Don't remember what year or anything, but we had Warren Burnett, Racehorse Haynes, Oscar Goodman. It was a great seminar.
Oscar Goodman, the present mayor of Las Vegas, is that right?
Yeah, and what I remember about that is I got to sit around and get drunk with the three of them around in a bar, and those were just some amazing lawyers and amazing individuals. Their minds just were so sharp that you just being around them, you got an IQ of 20 plus, just for an hour being around them, listening to them talk.
Well, now, when you started TCDLA, about what was the size of it, if you recall how many members there were?
You know, when I first got on the board, I bet there was not over 700 members, 600, something like that. I think when I was president, we might have had 1,200 members, and we had Lillian and John Boston were the two employees.
I wanted to ask you a question. Mark wanted me to be sure and mention that Lillian Summerall, is it true that she was your personal selection and you hired her to work for TCDLA?
I think I was on the other end of that vote. Well, you know, one of the things that came to light after we found out she'd been stealing for us is John Boston sold his pickup to her, and TCDLA paid John for the pickup, and she told John that I gave her permission to do that.
So was the title to that pickup in TCDLA's name or Lillian's?
Lillian.
I see.
John trusted her.
I
and
see.
we trusted her.
So Lillian was a former administrative secretary and John Boston was the executive director.
Yeah, the only two employees, and you know, a month after I took office is when they did the audit and found out that she'd been stealing. So I spent a lot of my time in the home office going over books and audits.
So your accounting background and your tax return background came in handy at that time, is that right?
You know, the other funny thing, at every meeting that we had, Ron Goranson would bring some question up about the financial statement. And it got to where it was, oh shit, we don't understand this. Just shut up, Ron. Come find out he knew what he was talking about.
Yeah.
It didn't jive.
Yeah. So what are in your memory, what are some of your best cases and most memorable cases that you've had, Bill?
Well, we were talking about how much fun it used to be trying these cases, and I was going through my scrapbook, getting prepared for this, and got back then, we would try anything. I mean, terrible, terrible murder cases, and we might get convicted on them, but they get 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. And, you know, it seems like every case there was something funny that wouldn't happen in the case. These old judges, Judge Wright, Judge Shaver, they were stern, and we, but I can remember several cases where the jury would just laugh, at some of the stuff. Since this is going to be edited, Psychedelic Slim, he molested a couple of, one girl that was about 10, 11 years old, supposedly, and her sister was 6, and she had witnessed it. We spent probably an hour questioning her, trying to get the judge to say she wasn't qualified to testify, and finally the judge let her testify. The DA asked her what happened. She said, well, sir, he was trying to get to my sister's privates. And said, well, what did you do? And she looked at the DA, looked at the judge, looked at the jury, and she said, I picked up a rock and I hit that motherfucker. And I could go on for hours about, well, you remember the case we tried where he got the lady pregnant in jail? We brought it happened through the bars.
There's a jailer that got the
jailer,
inmate pregnant.
Yeah, the jailer got the inmate pregnant. And Cecilia Richardson, I think, was her name. And so we brought the bars into the courtroom. And we had her back up to the bars. And then we had him go up to the bars. And then we took a tape measure. And then we had the wife testify about how he was endowed when he was excited. He came up 3 inches short. Texas Monthly article on it said he rose to the occasion. Of course, there was DNA showing it was his kid. So.
Oh. So in spite of the physical impossibility, science nailed you again.
And then Birdsong, he was a tech football player, had supposedly had raped a secretary for the police department, and we tried him for a week, and the jury hung up 11-1. That was Judge Davidson's case.
Yeah.
Judge Davidson liked to talk to the jury after it was over with. And there's a deal where they were on a date, and he said she agreed, and she said she didn't. And Judge Davidson got the jury together after it was over with, and said, well, I think you folks did the right thing. I think she just lit his fire and couldn't blow it out. And, if something like that happened today, one of the cases that I really enjoyed trying was Warren Mack. Actually, we tried Warren Mack twice. One time he killed an ex-cop, and Travis Shelton, I was on the case, and I was a young attorney, and they didn't, and I really didn't have the experience to do it. And Travis tried most of it, but that was a not guilty. And then later on, they caught him with 690 pounds of marijuana in Plainview. His main industry is a Baptist college there. And Warren Burnett came down and tried the co-defendant. And we ended up, the pilot got 10-year probation and $10,000 fine. Warren's client got a 3-year probation and a $10,000 fine, and my client got 10 years and a $10,000 fine. And Warren, we spent a day and a half picking the jury on that, and he by far was the best attorney I've ever tried case with. And what was great about it is he and I became real good friends after that, and I really cherished that friendship.
I recall that anytime we would have a seminar here in Lubbock, you always seemed to get Warren to make a commitment to come to the seminar, and he would fly his own little Cessna. Was it a Cessna that he would fly?
Well, I've let him out when he was in his twin-engine Baron,
Oh.
and he could not walk, and he would get in that thing and fly off. He says he was more relaxed when he was drinking.
He'd have to move the beer cans over when he would get in the airplane.
Well, one time the engine quit on him. He said he was about 10 beers into the flight, and the urinal was lapping at the edges. Said he added one to the checklist: open windows, throw out beer cans, fuel on proper tank. We two other memorable cases. One of them was the American agriculture movement back in the late 70s. I represented them, and we were protesting in the valley on the International Bridge, and they tear gassed us and took about 100 people to jail. And I was on the first busload going to jail. It made national news. They really beat up. I remember there was a camera lady, or a news lady for CBS News that they just beat to a pulp, and I bet she wasn't 5 foot tall. And we got in jail, and I was dressed in my Levi's and boots, and I went up to this jailer and told him I needed out. And he said, "Why?" And I showed him my bar card, and I said, "I wasn't with those fools. I just came to get them out of jail." So he let me out. I didn't even get booked. And then Racehorse, actually, I called him, and he was going to represent us on it, and John Hill and I negotiated the release of the prisoner. Once they got in there, the jail was already to capacity before the farmers got in there, and they didn't want they offered them anything just to leave, and they wouldn't leave. And so we finally worked out a deal that we could each put up a $25 bond. And if they didn't want to come back, then that bond would be the fine on the criminal trespass. And it was probably 7 or 8 years later, the JP drove to Lubbock in a blinding sandstorm to give me that bond money back that we put up.
Is that right?
One of the farmers, that was when Dolph Briscoe and John was running for governor. And like I say, John came down and got right in the middle of it. And Dolph didn't want to have anything to do with it because that was kind of his territory, and he didn't want to alienate any of those people in South Texas. So one of the farmers called the sheriff up, and he said, "I'm so-and-so, I'm Governor Briscoe's aide, and he wanted me to call you and tell you those farmers are to have everything they want in that jail. They're not to be mistreated," and just on and on. And the first night we catered chicken fried steak into them. They finally let us get booze into them. We had pretty well everything that we wanted. And then later on, Gerald McCatherine, who was head of the movement, and I had lunch at the governor's mansion. And right before we went to the governor's mansion, we were on a TV show, a PBS TV show, and we just badmouthed the governor up one side and down the other. And then he insisted on coming and getting us in his limousine so we'd go over to the mansion and eat chili with him.
I'm assuming the PBS show wasn't live then?
No.
What else? Any other memories of big cases, Bill?
Well, we had the, what they call the Wischkaemper, Federal Wischkaemper Relief Act of 1985, where they busted 100 and some odd banditos. And we tried that in Dallas. There was 26 defendants, 26 lawyers, 16 of us went all the way through the trial. And that was really a great trial. We had some of the best criminal defense lawyers in the state, Tim Evans, Anderson, just it was great working with those people. I think we tried it for 5 weeks. There were 8 guilties and 8 not guilties. Robbie Robinson was one I was representing, which was one of the not guilties, and he died of an overdose a couple of weeks later.
Celebrating, huh?
Yeah. I represented the Hampton football coaches when they came to Lubbock to play the Lady Raiders. And I got to know Johnny Cochran fairly well, representing them, and that was quite a delight. Johnny was a great guy. You could call him, and his office would put you through. He may be in a limousine going to LA, going to the airport, headed to LA. He would always call you back and visit with you. And I enjoyed, the Hampton coach deal. Nothing ever happened on it because they weren't guilty, but just knowing Johnny Cochran from that was one of the highlights. One of the banditos is Earthquake. I was going through my scrapbook, and I was representing Earthquake in federal court on selling a submachine gun to an undercover agent. And we were standing in front of Judge Woodward, and Judge sentenced him to 12 months in the federal pen. And he said, do you have anything else to say? And Earthquake raised his hand, and he said, Judge, could you make that 12 months in a day? And I didn't know what he was doing, but if you got the 12 months in a day, you got his good time. And so the judge gave him the 12 months in a day and made me look stupid. We had a case last year sometime. This doctor, Ben Yang, was coming back from Houston on a Southwest flight, and they wouldn't give her a blanket, so in the end she pushes the stewardess down, and the stewardess happened to be the stewardess of the year for Southwest, and there was a state rep and veterinarian and about 10 different witnesses saw her do it, but she didn't think that, she thought she was justified in doing it because they were prejudiced against Chinese people, and so we worked it out for a petty misdemeanor, and we tried to plead her, and she would never say she was guilty, and so the judge told us go out and talk about it, come back at 3 and see if she would say she was guilty. And as we walked out of the federal courtroom, I didn't realize that cameras were down there. Actually, I was walking out of the courthouse, and I said, congratulations, bitch, you just run the rest of your life. they picked that up. She's now saying that she wasn't guilty, and I forced her to plead guilty. You were asking about the criminal defense lawyers. After I got involved, I realized what a great organization it was, but we had a situation where Sonny Bird's plane went down with a...
Sonny Bird was bondsman here.
He was a bondsman here, and he had loaned his plane out to to another guy, but Larry Jeter was flying the plane, and little accident, and there was some cocaine and marijuana scattered over a large area where the plane went down. And so the guy that had the plane borrowed called. No, Sonny Bird came by my house about 3 o'clock in the morning, and we needed to call the guy that had the plane borrowed and see what happened. So I told Sonny that, we can't call him from any phones, that they'll be able to trace it back to who called. So we went to 7-Eleven to payphone, and Sonny used his credit card. A few months later, I get a subpoena testify in front of the federal grand jury in Albuquerque, and I had Tim Evans and Cliff Brown. I don't remember who all, but the task force came and represented me, and we quashed the indictment, and they wouldn't even let me pay for their expenses. So then I realized what a great group it was.
TCDLA would stand behind you.
They did, and every time I do something for the strike force, I think about that, and I would spend as much time as it took to do anything for TCDLA.
Well, Bill, what if you were going to give any advice to a young lawyer just getting out of law school, what would you tell them about your experiences?
We've had some young lawyers that have rented from me in the past, and I don't know that I should paint all young lawyers with this paintbrush or not, but the ones that I've seen do not have any direction. They don't think they need to return their phone calls. They don't think they need to stay in touch with their clients. They don't realize that when a client hires you, this is probably the most important decision he's made in his life, that he's put his life in your hands, and you need to at least act like you're concerned if you're not. And I have so many phone calls about so-and-so's my lawyer. I've tried to call him. He won't return my phone calls. I've gone over to the office and tried to sit there and wait on him, and he won't see me. And that's not the way to build your practice. You need to act like, you need to really have their interest at heart. It doesn't take 15, 20 minutes to return all your phone calls before you leave the office. And I see so many young attorneys that seem like they're in it more for the money. The faster I can get rid of the case, the better, more money I can make. And they'll go to the DA and they'll take the first offer the DA offers them, and then they'll try to scare their client into taking it. I guess one thing I don't understand is I can't ever talk the clients into taking deals like that, and they must have some talent if they can talk the clients into taking the bad deals that they do. And there's some really good attorneys out there, but I don't know at least here in Lubbock, who's going to take the place of, you know, the Byron Chapels and the Danny Hurleys and that bunch that are in there trying cases and doing a good job. And I just don't know who they're going to be.
What, if you had a legacy or something that you wanted people to remember you by, what would be your wish about that, Bill?
That when a client comes in, I tell him that you've got a problem, and if we can take care of your problem, the legal problem will take care of itself. As you know, probably 70 to 80% of our clients have a drug problem. Some of them have mental problems, but most of them are drug problems. And what I do is I get them into treatment, and that's sort of a condition of representing them. And by the time the case comes up, we've already done everything that the judge or the jury could ask us to do, and they're not going to hurt us that bad. And you know, if you do that, I was jogging the other day and I had this woman stop me, and I didn't even recognize her. I'd represented her back in the 80s, and she said, you know, you saved my life. I was on drugs. You represented me. I've been off the drugs since 83 or whatever, and I just wanted to thank you. Some professor one time somebody asked a professor who they should hire here, and they said, well, if you're not guilty, this was when Floyd Holder was still practicing, you ought to hire Floyd. If you're guilty, you ought to hire Wischkaemper. And I've always kind of prided myself that, you know, I can get people in the position where we can do real well on punishment. I guess we'll see Monday how well that pans out on my math lab. But
So it's a continual battle, isn't it, Bill?
yeah, and it's not as much fun now as it used to be. You'd mentioned it. There's a distrust between the DA's office and the defense attorneys. I can remember we've got a third floor balcony on our office, and every Friday afternoon we'd have everybody from the DA's office over for drinks and cheese and dips and stuff, and you just don't do that anymore. And they take it personal, and it seems like they're not trained well. You know, they don't know the law because they don't have to know the law. They know the judge is going to protect them. If they want something in, it's going to come in. And that's the other thing I see is used to in the 70s and the 80s, there was such a thing as reversible error. And now the appellate courts are protecting the trial judges. Trial judges don't have to know any law. You know, I used to hate to try cases with Judge Wright and Shaver because they knew the law. It was really hard to get reversible error in with them. They give you a good trial, but if you're trying it for reversible error, you couldn't do it. But nowadays, all those cases, most of the cases that we got reversed back then, they would have said harmless error today.
There's a big difference in the judges on the bench today and the way they were about 20 years ago, isn't there?
Oh, yeah, a lot of them they don't know the law. They don't care what the law should be. They feel like they ought to be another player on the DA's side. And whatever helps the DA and hurts the defendant, that's their rule of admissibility.
What else, Bill?
tell this story since it'll be edited anyway. It's a Hobson story. We had a case, Percy Debris, and it's sort of racist too, so if y'all want to edit it, go ahead. But Percy was head of the this farm camp where the laborers stayed, and his wife went downtown Rawls one day, and this African American called her a motherfucker. And so Percy and his son went home and got a baseball bat and just whipped him to a pulp. And you want to let him in? Hobson was a brand new lawyer at the time, and he was going to go down and help me try it. We got down there, and they offered us a $75 fine. And Percy said, no, it just isn't against the law for a white guy to whip a black guy in Crosby County. And so we tried, and I had to tell the jury to disregard their oath as jurors, disregard the court's charge, and do what they knew was right in their own heart. That we had a right to go downtown Rawls without being called an EMF. And the quicker they came back with a verdict, the louder that message was going to be, and I wanted them to send it to the east side to the west side. So we got about a 5-minute not guilty, and that's how Hobson got his nickname, Stick Horse Hobson, instead of Racehorse. The only other thing I can think of is I was about 6 months. I'd had my license about 6 months, and 72nd, what's her name? The woman judge. Pat Moore appointed me on a real bad murder case, but I had an experienced lawyer who has since died, and I cannot remember his name, that was actually going to be first chair on it. Yulita shot her husband while he was asleep in bed, shot him like 6 times, and his artificial legs were hanging on the bedpost. He was a World War II hero. And about a month before we tried that, my experienced lawyer moved to Dallas, and so I had to try it, and I honestly was 6 months out of law school, or out of being licensed, when I tried that. And she ended up getting 30 years, and I think if I tried it today, she should have been found not guilty. I mean, it was a battered woman syndrome. But she died about 3 years ago, and she would still stay in touch with me. And this would have been in '73 that we tried that.
So your clients have been pretty loyal to you over the years.
When I was starting, I had some plastic cards made up. This would have been '73 and '74. And every once in a while, somebody will come in with one of those plastic cards that they've still got from that era.
So are you representing the grandkids and great-grandkids of people you represented a few years ago?
You know what's amazing is that most of my clients today were not even born when I started practicing law.
Yeah, that's true. Anything else, Bill?
No.
Okie doke.